My wife says that I'm fixing too much. I'm trying too hard. I'm butting my nose in where it shouldn't be. And she says I need to get over it. Well, maybe she's saying that overtly, or maybe she's saying it with rolling of her eyes or the scoffing or the walking away and not engaging with you when you're trying to help. You're trying to help her, you're trying to help your family, and you're not sure what to do. That's what we're going to talk about here today on the C Note Show with myself, Jeff Allen, and Cynthia Cruz, of course. Here on the C Note Show, we talk about and teach deep, intimate relationship between a man and a woman, a divine, let's say, ever growing sacred depth of connection and intimacy and communication, of values, of vision together, because she wants safety and inspiration and sexual leadership, and you want to avoid big mistakes. So, how to stop being an addicted caretaker, fixer, or rescuer? Cynthia, to start us off, what does it feel like for a woman in relationship with a man who, when things aren't going well, he starts to overly caretake or fix or rescue? Okay, how can I fix this? Who do I need to help? Who do I need to rescue? They can't take care of it themselves. So I guess I have to swoop in and do everything, is the vibe. What does
Yeah.
that feel like to a woman in relationship, please?
Yeah. Well, I just first want to honor the innate desire to want to swoop in and fix and rescue. And there's so many messages about that's what's needed, wanted, supposed to be. On the other side of that that intense drive of let's get rid of this problem as quick as possible, uh, actually can come across to a woman as not being heard, as a lack of resonance with how she's truly feeling. And in the end, a lot of what a woman's going through is what she's feeling and wanting to be heard in what she's feeling. And so the swooping in can feel can feel controlling. It can feel like you're almost trying to take away from her something that is hers. Uh and it can ride the gamut between feeling a little like she doesn't have enough air to breathe, to in wanting to push you away, to being actually really really hurt that you can't hear this inner voice that she's trying, probably very unskilledly trying to share with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Punch a one into the chat if you've ever been, let's say, accused of controlling or overly fixing, overly rescuing, or maybe she didn't say anything about it, so to speak, but you felt yourself slipping down that slope of, okay, what can I do next? What can I do next? And it just overtook your mind of how can I fix this? How can I rescue? Go ahead and punch a one into the chat for us. Yeah, appreciate you guys. Let's step forward for an example. I looked up the Oxford Dictionary definition of addicted. So physically and mentally dependent and unable to stop without incurring adverse effects. So if I can't stop without incurring either perceived or real adverse effects, and I'm dependent on doing this action or taking this substance, that's the definition of addicted. And what is the rescuer personality type? Rescuers are compulsive, often uninvited, helpers who cannot resist the temptation to jump in and try to fix other people's problems, also known as fixers or white knights. And there's an editorial that I won't go into, but it gave a quick, okay, here are 4 tips that can help you recognize the rescuer tendency. Maybe you're trying to be a white knight. So, do you have core wounds that you need to heal, where you feel out of control of your own life? Number 2, do you know the difference between support and rescuing someone? Number 3, have you given yourself time? Have you given yourself time to allow the situation to unfold without you trying to swoop in? And number 4, to start loving and respecting yourself. So it's very easy to say, okay, core wounds. I'm actually gonna copy and paste these into the chat. Okay, core wounds, fix your core wounds. Oh, how do I do that? What the hell does that? What does that even mean? The difference between support and rescuing. Okay, give yourself time where you don't feel like you have to swoop in right away, and start loving and respecting yourself. All right. Well, we talk about that, and this work and the books that we recommend, of course, are about loving and respecting yourself. Well, what are my core wounds? How do I know what my core wounds are around this? So let me call on, you put 19 ones into the chat. I didn't count them all. So if I throw the very easy question of what are your core wounds? A very difficult question of, okay, did you have wounds around rescuing, fixing? Did you recognize that through this work and from the past?
I'm wounded from recognizing it.
Yeah.
The ones were all about, Cynthia, what you were just saying of I don't feel heard, I feel controlled. I mean, those are exactly what I heard.
Mm.
And I recognize now, yeah, I've got that tendency to swoop in. If somebody, my kids come and say, I'm hungry, they're not looking for me to say, I know what it's like to be hungry. They're looking for something to eat.
Yeah.
I'm the provider. So, yeah, here's what we got. We got leftover pizza, we got granola bars, and I know you've got your stash of candy.
Yeah. So how do you make sense now of being called controlling with your wife?
Uh, well, how do I make sense of it? I watch It's Not About the Nail and laugh my ass off about 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And I practice that as often as I can, down to the level of it's so silly to me of now the kids say I'm hungry. And I do come across saying something more infantile, like, yeah, I was hungry earlier.
Yeah. And how does that go with the kids? What the hell did you do with our father? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but through the course of this work, I am tighter with the kids than I could have ever hoped before, especially my daughter.
Good for you. How old's your daughter?
Just turned 13.
Oh, so perfect timing for all this work, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Have they started to recognize the new version of you, the way you talk now, the way you approach things now? Have they noticed that?
Oh Lord, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I'm like a different guy.
What have they said anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean the reactions, the quick to anger. I mean, my daughter and I are like, oh yeah, that was old daddy,
Mm.
clearly. And with my son, he's 16, he's dating, I try to coach him certainly differently about differences, and I think I've shown him It's Not About the Nail. And we laughed, and
Mm.
I explained to him a little bit about how, yes, it's funny, but it's not as funny as you think.
Yeah, it's funny because it's true. Yeah, exactly.
So how to heal, I mean, I've recognized how all of these things added to the place where I got with my marriage. There's no hope of healing that particular wound, but going forward, I'm new daddy.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, we love the new daddy. I'm careful what I say here. We love the new daddy version of you. What else has been joyous in your life now that you maybe wouldn't have expected that your life is going so well right now?
Um, well, Wednesday night, tomorrow night, I'm going out with the guys um, from the community here.
Mm.
Um, what else? I am deliberately going out and doing things more fun just for me. I'm putting more miles on the motorcycle this year than I ever have. Uh, I'm sailing and kayaking more.
Oh.
Oh yeah, very cool. So you're gonna have more of a tan ongoing, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm looking good.
Right on. Good to see you, man. Thanks for getting us started. Appreciate you. Love you being here. I want to give an example I saw on Tiny Buddha, the website Tiny Buddha. And I'm going to bounce back to you, gentlemen who are here live. This goes, so how to stop rescuing other people to feel good about yourself, from Tiny Buddha. Stop rescuing other people to feel good about yourself. However much I did, he says, no gold star was ever going to come from outside to officially certify I was enough. If I was to become a truly kind person, I needed to start learning to be kind to myself. That's what we've learned as nice guys, right? Being a nice guy isn't actually kind. Being a nice guy is filled with manipulation and lack of awareness and trying to use other people to feel good about yourself. That's what the nice guy was about. He goes on to say, it was hard. I had to stop constantly being the most helpful person around. But in my mind, at least, that's who I was. My profession, my relationships, and my identity were all based on that. If I wasn't the most helpful person around, what was left? I was like an addict in withdrawal, without the regular feel good boosts of appreciation from others. I had to face all the difficult feelings I'd had about myself for as long as I could remember. The guilt, fear, and insecurity I developed when I was a sensitive kid who felt like he didn't belong and always thought he had something to compensate for, atone for,
Mhm.
or prove. But at least I was now pointing in the right direction. So every step was progress. Each week was a little better than the last, spotting when I was being too self critical and learning to be kinder, holding back from fixing a problem someone could easily fix for themselves. For example, unless my partner specifically asked me to help solve a problem for her, I learned to empathize, encourage, and support her so she could work it out for herself. Stepping back meant some things didn't get done, or they took longer, or they went wrong, but sometimes they went better than if I'd tried to fix them. Who knew? And sometimes the person asking decided it wasn't important after all. Like we were talking about with it, they're not actually asking for something, it's more about the emotional experience. More importantly, though, by learning to hold back, I was allowing others the space to develop while weaning myself off the quick, feel good boosts I got from helping others. Of course, this didn't happen overnight. Changing deep patterns takes time, but each small change sets you up for the next one. It's a gradual, positive, self reinforcing cycle. So, Cynthia, why is it important for a woman to be allowed to maybe work it out for herself here? For example, unless my partner specifically asked me to help her solve a problem, I learned to empathize, encourage, and support her so she could work it out for herself. We've talked quite a lot about her wanting to be seen and understood and empathized with, but why is it also important that she work it out for herself, would you say?
Mm, that's it's a little bit of a tricky one because it's almost like you're working with her human animal side of her brain and her human spirit. Because the human animal part of her that's so based on evolution and comes from this very feminine mode of survival will very much want you to help solve her problem. Alison Armstrong talks about women desiring, if she comes to you with something really stressful, she feels loved if you're taking something off her plate. However, we talk about human spirit and your spirit as a man, the honoring you have in your masculine to hold space for her emotion and to have a core belief in yourself that she in her feminine is so capable to process whatever emotion is coming down the pike, that you can show appreciation for maybe what's on her plate and see her in that way. That actually gives her more energy and more of a boost and self-confidence than if you respond just to the evolutionary part of her that's almost saying like save me, and then she almost gets in her own addictive cycle with you, which you can never win because you probably will never do it just right.
Well, there's a balance there. There's a balance of, let's say, serving the human animal part of her, recognizing the core archetypal femininity. Like, oh baby, this is so hard. And she'd love for your kingliness to come in and swoop in and take care of it for her. That balanced with, okay, she is an adult woman with agency. She does need to, of course, run her own life. She wants to feel responsible. That's a piece that we see from one-on-one clients, especially when we get into deep conversation, is that maybe she stayed home. Maybe he tried to do everything for her, and she feels like she lost her options in life. She feels like she actually lost control, and his mind is blown because he's done everything to give her as much freedom as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So where do you think that line comes in of the control piece or the caretaking piece is too much?
Yeah, I do think if we go to this core idea of the feminine so hungry to be seen and acknowledged, the interweaving of those energies is seeing and acknowledging what she's going through, with like appreciating how her feminine responds to certain things, how her feminine reacts to certain things, that's actually a gift, and then allowing her to move that herself through her body, allows her to know that you believe in her, that you see her as sovereign and beautifully strong in her feminine energy. And that's so healing, because right now in our world, she doesn't have any feedback like that. Even if she's at home all day or at work all day, she's receiving that. What makes her powerful, dependable, strong is to be more masculine. And that's so not helpful to her and will just wear her out and make her more critical of herself and of others around her.
So helping to build up her own agency, her human spirit, so to speak, is important in that dance.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this reminds me of your story. Last time we talked, which is some number of weeks ago now, things were going better. So I'd love to have an update from you and how this conversation is resonating with you, the overly caretaking potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know my story. My wife's biggest issue is, the self-image that she has about, her body, her weight, her looks, whatever you want, however you want to characterize it. And I know a thing or two about it, right? Like, I grew up an athlete, I exercise, I work out, but she just won't accept any of that from me. And so, I've ruminated so much about this in my head, like how can I approach her? Because it seems to me like she's calling out for help. She just doesn't want my help in that space. What frustrates me, though, I've said before, is that she does virtually nothing to help herself. Yet it's such an issue. It's painful for me to watch because she has such a complex over this. But it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy for her. She just can't seem to get out of her own way. And just her diet is one example of how she, kind of circumvents her own effort in that regard, right? Like she just can't seem to do it on her own.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that I've given up on it, but I'm done bringing it up. I'm done talking about it unless she approaches me, because then then I'm kind of assured that I'm not just going there on my own and, and invalidating her at the same time. I know she's never going to come to me. At least I don't think she ever will. And so that's kind of the frustrating part. But so I'm at peace with myself, I think, is the answer to your question, Jeff. You know what I mean? And because I feel that peace within myself, I don't have to worry about fixing her or what anxiety that may impose on her. That's her stuff to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
How that works back into the relationship over the course of time, I think, is not where I'm stuck, because I'm actually starting to realize more and more that this is either something that we're going to be able to work through or we're not, based on the problems that it causes. It's the end of the relationship is obviously the last thing I want, but I've also come to terms with the possibility that if this doesn't change, I'm not convinced that I could continue on with the relationship for the next 20 years, let's say. Right. So I'm still trying to work through all that and process it. But at least I know that I feel good about what I'm doing, or perhaps what I'm not doing, in the context of the relationship and how I come across to her. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's well said. So there's 3 phases of this coaching. There's stop messing up, which stop being an addicted rescuer is a way to stop overly helping, stop putting our foot in our mouth, how to do that. The second phase is grow a healthy space, grow the skills that you have in your tool belt. And the third phase is invite. And I wanted to say that out loud, that you're doing incredibly well with that. Stop trying to be the one to fix her. It's not helping. So let me ask from there. So Cynthia, I just got off the phone this morning with a man who they've been together for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the punchline of the one-on-one call was, one of his regrets was that he didn't, let's say, push the issue more 15 years ago, when sex basically fell to the wayside, that he just gave her space and time They were both very logical people.
Mhm.
So he gave her space and time, just thinking that she's going to heal this sort of on her own. And it didn't happen. And he really hasn't spoken up about it for many, many years. And so his regret is that he didn't have the skills
Mhm.
to help open her emotionally. And he didn't know to do that. He didn't know to kind of lean into that.
Sure.
So that's one piece of it. And maybe she never comes to me.
Mhm.
Is this now an us problem? It's not just her problem, so to speak, if it's leaching into the relationship space. And we know that it is.
Mhm.
So it's not just her problem any longer if it's affecting the relationship and the intimacy and connection and closeness. It's an us problem. So if it's an us problem, like this man I got off the phone with this morning, is this now an us problem that I'm going to lean into? And I want to lean into for the sake of the relationship. Talk with us about that, please.
Yeah, and I just saying, I'm so in respect how you've seen this pattern in her, and there's this step back of, she doesn't want my help, and I'm not going to try to fix her because that's not working, and still that must be very painful to watch. There's something really powerful with women where when something does become an us problem, where it's the relationship dynamic, that can be a fire in her, uh, a pulling force forward to feel some of her own gumption and will to deal with the things that she's going through with herself, and sometimes needing to feel the pressure of that is like, so it's like something her nervous system needs, because right now, and I've talked with other men with women in similar situations, she's drowning in her own nervous system, and drowning so much that she doesn't even if there's an emotional desire to pull herself out, there isn't enough working in play to help her. And women really do, even though you're probably seeing a lot of behaviors that would indicate completely the opposite, the thing that pulls women the most is relationship dynamics at work, relationship dynamics with kids, with partner. And I can only imagine that she might talk about feeling pressured, or if she's being asked to meet the us issue. But it is kind of her lifeline. If she's willing to accept it, that can be stronger than her own tide pool that's pulling her down. And I say that from witnessing it, but also experiencing that in my own body at times.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So take us from there. How is that dynamic going with your wife right now, please?
Yeah, drowning is a perfect characterization of what I perceive to be, going on within her. I mean, she is, just so she's not depressed, but I think she's heading in that direction if, something doesn't change. But yeah, so, and I can't expect her to work on us if she's having that much trouble working on her. Right. That's the other realization that I've come to. And she'll tell me, she's like, it has nothing to do with you at all. And my response to her just recently was, yeah, but it's affecting us.
Right. It does, though. Yeah.
It's having an effect on us in the relationship in the context of our marriage. So it is slowly but surely becoming an us problem. And then I just leave it at that. There's no sense in explaining what that means. She knows. But what I sense in her, Cynthia, is that she feels that sort of response as disappointment, as opposed to an empowering, an empowering idea to say, wow, that's something new. Never heard him say that before. Or maybe it's sinking in where she then gets inspired to actually do something. Now, I haven't seen that yet, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. But the sense that I get from her, because she'll make little snarky comments, kind of half joking, but there's truth to it, where, oh, you're just disappointed in me, or whatever it is that she says. And then I reassure, I say, I'm not disappointed in you, but it's hard for me to watch you go through something that I know that I can help you with, but you either don't want my help or you don't want to take the initiative on your own. It's hard to watch. It's
Mm,
painful to me. I just don't, and I can see at that moment when I say that something like that to her, she's pleasantly surprised by that, because then it's a very genuine comment, and I think she realizes that I'm not disappointed in her at all. I'm frustrated where the relationship is. Yeah, that's true,
mhm.
but I'm not disappointed in her as a person or as a lover or as a companion. But because we're married and we've been friends and all, it's hard. It'd be hard to watch anyone go through that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that little by little it's chipping away in a positive way. I'm just not convinced of it yet. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where things are.
Yeah. The emotional range that you're showing there of yes, or I care about you, and this is about us, or no, I'm not disappointed in who you are as a person, but yes, this does affect our relationship. That range, and I'll ask Cynthia about this here in a second. That range is important. It's not just this sucks, I'm disappointed, and that's it. Or it's not just rah Pollyanna bullshit either. It's both. It's the whole spectrum there.
And see, I think it used to be for so long, Jeff, that she's having trouble trusting, what I'm trying to explain to her now, or what I'm trying to help her understand.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So Cynthia, where's the point, or let's please talk about when it becomes an us problem. And to help depersonalize an us problem, we've taught you use a metaphor, for instance, as this is the dragon. It's a dragon of anxiety. It's a dragon of worry or concern, let's say. And when the dragon pokes his head out of the cave, then it causes fear. When the dragon starts breathing fire, it can burn her and other people around her. Right?
Mhm.
That's not what she wants. She doesn't want this dragon to take over their life or affect their relationship. So when is it appropriate, let's say, or talk with us about when it would be appropriate for the man to lead into that? I want to protect us. I want to slay the dragon together. I want to protect you from the dragon. I want to protect our family from the anxiety dragon. That's always going to be there. It's totally normal,
Mm.
but I don't want that dragon to burn us all to a crisp. So then, therefore, it's an us problem. And here's some suggestions. Which one of these suggestions do you want to do
Yeah.
with me? Or
Well, I loved what you said that of her positive response to you laid such a beautiful foundation of like, I'm not, as the man in your life, disappointed in you, because I would say that's quickly a collapse in a woman if she feels that way. I think that kind of comes from old triggers, maybe with dad, or a woman's very quick to take what you say into, I'm disappointing someone, thus I should be shamed and I'll just shut down habit. So knowing like that's taken off the table every time that kind of trigger gets healed a little bit, she probably needs to be reminded of that many times. But then once that reminder is there, then it's, and here's the driving force forward, whether it's the metaphor or the, hey, this is something that's really so important to us. But that kind of like 1-2 punch is not the right phrasing, but it's making sure it's not going into that her own self-critical, because I think that can happen in just a millisecond with a woman, which is normal for her. But again, that's what's so healing about masculinity, is her realizing that that's not what you mean, even though that's been her frame on the world probably since childhood.
when you say make sure that it doesn't go into a shaming place, say more about that, please. We can have the intention, but we can't control.
Yeah, so maybe misspoke. Is offering in the moment, just like so clearly did, of, hey, I'm just putting out there, this is not about you failing me or as a disappointment. It's also paying attention to her facial expressions, and if you see a woman immediately shut down, there's an opportunity there to offer out, hey, this isn't about you, you're disappointing me. Even giving that frame of mind And I know today's topic is not about not being the rescuer. It's kind of taking the painting that she's presenting you and noticing, oh, there's some red here. I'm noticing like she has some shame, and I can offer as part of my masculine gift awareness that this isn't about you, it's about us. She can take that as a gift or she can turn away. But it is gold either way.
Yeah. Well, that's well said. And part of our work as a man is to know in our heart when we're saying, yeah, I'm disappointed for the situation. I'm frustrated for the situation, but it's not about you as a person. I'm not disappointed in my child as a person for lying or failing a test or stealing something. They're not a failed human, but I'm disappointed in their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to have that approach, guys. Like, she's not going to be happy. Part of the not rescuing or overly caretaking is she may not be happy with what you say, but it's something important to be said. She may not love your values or your boundaries, so to speak, but it's important that you have them and that you believe in them. So that's part of the not being a nice guy, is not overly caretaking her emotions in any moment. Your point of noticing, is she just collapsing in on everything that's being said? Okay, yeah, we need to be aware. Our lover skills need to be aware of that. But otherwise, please say more about the pushing in, because so many men, including me in the past, just thought any kind of adverse reaction meant I did something wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe it's about her stuff.
Yeah.
So talk with us about that for a minute.
Yeah. I think your incredible awareness in your kingly eye, your eagle eye, being able to see what's going on in a woman is so amazing, because you can pick up on facial expressions. You can see how her body language is. And I would say men of your caliber and skill have often seen that as something that was wrong or bad because she has a facial expression, because her body does something. And it's, the feminine doesn't grow unless there's an emotional challenge inside of herself, unless she has to process something that feels kind of hard or ucky or really sad. And the way she can feel safe doing that is feeling like there's a container, there's a loving eye watching her, but there's someone not thrown off by all the visuals and all the signals that maybe you should turn away. And to me, that's the whole point of sacred partnership, is someone like you willing to show up in her life and be that person and hold that staff and say, this is what needs to happen. One of the mill relationships, a woman has emotional stuff and then just tucks it away or hides it away or resorts to her own habits and patterns, which don't suit her, don't suit her soul, don't suit her growth and life journey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So staying away from overly rescuing doesn't mean you just leave her to her own devices necessarily. I said, my wife and I have the following dynamic. She dropped herself on the floor and I rescue her. Manipulation 100% to obtain what she wants. Mm. So we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. So she literally drops herself on the floor, or she
no.
Okay.
Just an expression. It's a dynamic that I didn't realize that we had until the separation happened. And the therapist brought it to me. And it's pretty clear that it's a manipulation tactic to obtain what she wants. And she's able to escalate it like real high. And what happened, and I was always the rescuer. That was the dynamic between the two of us. She dropped herself on the floor and I would rescue. And it was 20 years of the same thing.
Yeah.
And now I've stopped to some degree, but it's very difficult because the dynamic was like really high for us. Where we had that, it was like a circle happening here. And now it's becoming like well, when we came back together, I started helping a lot with the things that she was asking for, right? As a romantic person, I said, oh, okay, let's start doing all what she wants, right? And it became where I'm doing everything and she's not doing anything with house and kids, right? It was kind of, it went the other direction. And now I'm trying to rebalance, and it's very difficult because she took over her manipulation tactics that became more elevated. I don't know what word to use, right?
Yeah.
And and now I'm learning to see it every time it's happening, and then I'm not getting in there. Sometimes I just stay quiet and stay out of the situation. Other times I say no, but there is pushback from her side. So I'm going through the waves of navigating through that whole situation, right? It's challenging sometimes. It's not easy, but I think I'm starting to get some direction from myself to guide through this process.
Yeah, good for you. Is there a particular, what's the most difficult part of that? What's the most challenging part for you?
That I was a rescuer, or I'm still am, right, to some degree. My kids are learned all that scenario, and it's the weight is with me right now, right? And with the entire family, right? So it's getting myself into a position of balance is difficult, right? So I'm learning to put some boundaries there so I can like continue this path. I don't know, but when I saw the message on the invitation, I said, this is 100% what's happening, right? It's a rescuer. I'm the rescuer, right? And she's pushing for that. But I also see what you were talking to, I think, where I don't know, she needs to do something with herself now. I mean, it's because I took so many tasks out of her life. Now she's like without responsibilities, right? Or a lot of responsibilities. And it's like, now, what do I say? There is this missing of life scenario in her life, right? It's like, what do I do with my life now that you took over, right? Or something like that. There's a dynamic going on there that I don't quite understand. But I was expecting for her to do something for her, but I don't see it happening. It's like,
that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, this offering her so much freedom that it doesn't appear that she's utilizing it. In fact, it almost erodes her confidence that you're taking away too many things potentially.
Right. That's the feeling that I have, and it's like weird, right?
Yeah, because we would love it if we had no responsibility. Wouldn't that be great? You just do it. I don't know. Maybe for a couple of weeks it'd be great, and then we'd get answered.
Right. To me, I'm a person that takes responsibilities. I don't want to be doing nothing. I mean, maybe 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks you get bored and you want to do songs, and she's not. And I was like, what's happening? Yeah. What gets her motivated to do something for herself or the kids or anything? It's
these are great questions, and we don't have much time. I would follow up on that, but I'm curious if when you ask her about that, in between now and when we have this call again, or when you're on this call again, I'm curious for you to dive into that, to lean in, to ask her about what inspires her tasking, right? You don't say it this way, but masculine tasking is how she wants to affect the world, how she might want to change the world. And femininity is more about connection and growing something, blooming something, which we've talked about before. So when you come on again next, I'm curious how that's gone, and you're learning about her learning about herself, you standing up for boundaries more particularly. Okay. Thanks. Good stuff. Thanks for being on here. So Cynthia and I will leave you today with a couple of excerpts from a Psych Central article, Rescuing, Resenting, and Regretting, a Codependent Pattern. Codependents are often caretakers, which seems like a great quality, except we tend to do it at our own expense, and often when help isn't wanted or needed. The result is a codependent pattern of rescuing, resenting, and regretting. What is rescuing? Rescuing is an unhealthy version of helping. It resembles enabling and tries to change or fix other people. So when you're doing something for someone, guys, if you're hoping that this is going to fix them or change them, pause, back up, rethink it. Rescuing includes doing things for others that they're capable of doing for themselves, making it easier for others to continue their unhealthy behaviors, helping others avoid the consequences of their actions, doing more than your share of the work, taking responsibility for other people, trying to solve their problems, and helping out of obligation rather than because you want to. So people pleasing instead of because you want to. Those are rescuing. And codependents rescue because, so it's important to know what this fuels. Why do I do this? They do this, rescuers and codependents do this because caretaking and rescuing makes us feel useful, needed, and worthy. So how else can we make ourselves feel useful, needed, and worthy in a healthy way in the world? We become caretakers at an early age out of necessity because our parents lacked caretaking skills. We feel responsible for other people, their feelings, choices, safety, happiness, and so on. Okay, we can feel responsible for them, but we can't keep them in a bubble. Right? Rescuing helps us feel in control and temporarily quiets our fears and anxieties. We can focus on someone else instead of our own stuff. We think it's our duty or job to take care of everyone and everything. We're afraid to say no and set boundaries. We believe others will suffer if we don't rescue them. We think we know better than others and have the answer to their problems, and we confuse rescuing with true helping. How annoying would it be for you as a man to have, let's say, another man in your life come and say, you know what, I actually know what's best for you. You don't know how to make yourself valuable in the world. You don't know how to take care of yourself. You don't make the right choices. So I'm going to make all these choices for you. I'm going to tell you the choices that you're going to make. I'm going to tell you what to do. Hell no. Hell no. Like a teenager, we wouldn't want to be involved in that at all. In fact, how insulting, because we're no longer a teenager. Why are you talking with me that way? How can women feel that same way? Talk with us about that for a moment.
Yes, and I love that you can see a pattern so clearly. I'm so amazed that you've picked up on all the nuance of how she's playing into manipulation and how you're then kind of playing with the dynamic and practicing standing back. I would say that yes, can women feel like totally crushed and angry if they're receiving someone saying like, I know the best for you. And it can be like almost like there's a feminine rage that comes up, a self-protection mode. And I also want to say that women also want to feel useful, needed, and worthy, and they can have that on the scale of how much they're codependent and how they're not. But when a woman is floundering in finding herself, she's looking for useful, needed, and worthy. And so her skill with that will vary. But that is something that she does have to find for herself. Because if you try to spoon feed it to her, it will be like a teenager response, and she'll hate it and feel resentful. But to have your eagle eye, king's eye view, like that's what she's searching for. Even just you seeing that and knowing it in your own heart, she can feel your simple acceptance of that. And even your simple acceptance is can be an energetic fuel for her.
Thank you.
Thank
Super
you.
well said. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Karen. Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah.
If you guys want to hear more, if you want to learn more, if you want to reach out to Cynthia or myself, our website is Great Men Move Mountains. So greatmenmovemountains.com. greatmenmovemountains.com/Facebook to join us in our Facebook group. I think there's almost 400 guys in there now. Thanks, Cynthia. See you guys next time. Thanks for being here.